everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you can see me okay. I've been trying out different sort of camera positions and stuff, so it's all experimental, so hopefully you can see this okay. In today's video, I'm going to do a little video on one of my how I've managed to overcome, I'm still working on it, but it's a work in progress, but how how I'm working on overcoming one of my biggest fears, one of the fears that I've had for quite a long time now, and how actually autism, being autistic, in my case, I feel has actually helped me to overcome one of my fears that was also caused by being autistic, which is a little bit of a strange sort of dialectic. So to provide a little bit, so what I'm going to be talking for trying to get my thoughts in order. Okay, the fear that I've tried to been overcoming is my fear of cooking fish. Cooking fish from raw to cooked. Now you might be thinking, I'm a little bit embarrassed in a way saying this because I'd imagine that like many people who don't have this fear, this phobia, this OCD might kind of think, well, so what? That's like, you know, what's there to be scared about, like cooking fish, you know? Because I guess so. I'm a little bit I feel quite nervous just talking about it. Maybe because I've kind of got this kind of internalised kind of stigma about talking about OCDs and stuff. Because a lot of time I've been told I'm stupid for having them, and it's quite hard for me actually talking about this. But I hope you understand. Obviously, OCDs aren't like. Although my OCDs do kind of contain some basis in logic, like obviously hygiene is important and stuff, I kind of like take them too far, and it's built up this whole OCD about, oh, what if I don't cook it properly? Will this make me ill? Yeah. So anyway, to provide a little bit of context, however, food, it happens to be one of my major interests. It's always been a major interest ever since I was a very little girl. It's been kind of a lifelong kind of special interest. And as you probably are aware, you'll certainly be aware of this if you are autistic yourself. But for those of you who might be watching who don't know much about autism, when I say a special interest, I mean not just like a standard interest. I mean an all-consuming, obsessive preoccupation. Something that basically takes over your life, is your life, basically, mostly in good ways. For example, when I was a child, I used to look at every single food item in the supermarket and list the product ingredients to my mum when going for walks. I love doing that. I used to write up pretend menus. Actually, that was my mum's way of trying to get me to practice writing, but it's really good because I was really interested in food, and I also wanted to be a chef when I was younger as well. Like, when I'm older, I'm going to be a chef. It's not going to happen because I couldn't cope in a fast-paced kitchen, although I love cooking and I can cook well in my own kitchen, but I wouldn't be able to do it in someone else's kitchen because, you know, of all the fast, you know, multitasking and everything, and do this, and you've got to do it to a certain pace. I wouldn't be able to do that. But yeah, I also used to memorise kids' lunch boxes at school, the contents of kids' lunch boxes, I should say. And I did lots of cooking when I was a kid. Had every opportunity with my mum. You know, I'd do lots of cooking with her. I had one of my favourite books. My favourite cooking books was Around the World Cookbook and Cooking for Beginners. I was like really interested in what they used to eat, what they ate in other cultures, which I still am. And that was one of my favourite books. So my mum used to help me cook and things. Now I think that's really good as well. In building like skills in those areas, because like I'm pretty I'm not really a very practical person, and I'm you know, but cooking seems to be one of the few areas where I have a reasonable amount of skill, and I think it is mainly thanks to that really strong interest and spending so much time when I was a kid practicing it with my mum, which I think has been really helpful. So I can say I can boil an egg, and not all people can say that. But yeah, it is a real life force and pleasure, and I think a lot of it. I mean, obviously, when I was younger, I didn't know for reasons for these things and everything. You know, they went unquestioned because I didn't know I was autistic or anything. But looking at it now through the perspective, obviously knowing I'm autistic, with that perspective, I do think a lot of it is connected maybe to the sensory side of autism, because like as I explained in my previous video, I'm very like sensitive to noise, and like most of the time that sensory side is really negative. But food is one of the few areas where I get a lot of satisfaction from the sensory world. And I feel quite privileged in that respect, because I know for many autistics, there are quite a number of autistics who find food really difficult and stuff like that. So I think I'm lucky and privileged in that the way my autism affects me is it's actually made the sensory side of food really enjoyable. And I really, really enjoy that sensory sort of, it's like getting all that satisfaction from food, and like just everything about food is just so satisfying. And I think in a world that's like really stressful, genuinely really stressful, having that, knowing that food is there all the time, and it's not like I'm eating all the time, because I'm not. When I was a kid, it was a different story. I didn't have that sense that I couldn't regulate myself, so I was like often eating like whenever I could. I would like stuff myself, not too often because my parents controlled my food, so I couldn't do that because my parents made sure that didn't happen, but most of the time. But if I was at a party situation or something like that and there was food, I went for it and I'd eat and eat and eat and eat because I love food so much. But as I've got older, that doesn't happen. I'm very controlled with my food intake now, very controlled, and I eat at set times, you know, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I don't often snack. I think food should be taken very seriously, you know. But I think it's like my anchor. It provides me with a constant source of pleasure within a routine, because food is very routinized. You know, if you're eating at set times, I always eat breakfast at about the same time. I eat lunch at more or less the same time. I eat dinner at more or less the same time. You know, give or take a few minutes, and obviously it's always built around what else I'm doing in a day. You know, and it's structured. But it's always within a certain time parameter. You know, it's very predictable in that respect, and I think that helps. But yeah, as I say, this same interest in food also generated a lot of anxiety, and I think a lot of this came from me taking things literally, misunderstanding instructions, and because it being one of my special interests, I think I was maybe more receptive to information about it, like negative information, so this again led to me developing a whole way of OCDs when I was a teenager, and food technology teacher has a lot to blame here. I mean, obviously I know like you do need to know about you need to know about hygiene and cross-contamination, all of that is really important. People need to know about these things. And that's really important, but it also needs to be put into context, and like, because I didn't know how far to take it, I would then err on the side of caution, and I would end up just avoiding foods, thinking like I might get ill from eating them, even though obviously like if you follow correct hygiene practices, the likelihood of getting ill is like really, really small. And I just needed someone to explain it to me properly, so that I didn't take it too far and develop a phobia over it. And unfortunately, because I didn't know I was autistic back then, and like, I hadn't yet been diagnosed, I didn't get that support, which is really annoying. And you know, if I could go back in time, I'd love to have received that type of support. I think it could have stopped quite a few of my OCDs from the like spiralling or even developing in the first place. Also, as I say, I read parenting magazines because of that obsession with babies I mentioned about in a previous video. So I was reading lots about food and air, and I was interested in it, but at the same time, I was taking in all this information, not knowing how to interpret it. So that led to OCD. So that's where the autism kind of triggered some anxieties, if you like. And also because I was watching the news, I used to be quite obsessed with the news. Like, no, and obviously there were a few scare stories in the news, like the Cadbury salmonella scandal and like other scandals affecting certain brands. And then I overgeneralised to like basically all foods that were like related to it. So I ended up, for a while, I didn't even eat any chocolate. I stopped eating chocolate. Okay, because I thought like, Cadbury's is affected, it might affect other chocolate. And I know this is absolutely absurd, and I know now, and it is absurd. And I've become more logical as I've got older and able to rationalise. But at the time, this just seemed so anxiety provoking. I just stopped eating all chocolates. But again, this was before I was diagnosed, and like my anxiety was sky high at the time anyway. So I think when your anxiety is already sky high, it makes it harder to rationalise generally. So yeah, I don't watch the news anymore to protect myself from literal overgeneralisation, and that has helped because I don't need to know about it, you know. Because my brain's like a sponge; it can't always interpret information correctly. But once I started receiving autism support, since getting diagnosed, I've actually gradually begun to overcome quite a few of these OCDs, and they're no longer. I still have them, but they're not as severe as they used to be, and I'm more able to rationalise them. And all those foods I used not to eat, I could talk about this more in other videos, like I stopped eating eggs and stuff like that. And obviously nowadays, like eggs are like really, really safe. But again, it was just because of everything we were told by the food teacher, and it just made me feel really scared and like, oh my god, I might get ill. So I stopped eating any high risk, what I thought was those high risk foods. But as I say, since receiving autism support, I've gradually begun to overcome it. And I think that's the reason for that is positive. First of all, positive role modelling. They've modelled what is correct behaviour. They've reinterpreted the information so I could get things into perspective. I can see how other people do things, and I'm getting a context, how it's done, what normal is, instead of being confused and not understanding, which just led to avoidance. Because as I say, I used to only eat food from like 2 supermarkets, Waitrose and Marks and Spencer's, because they were basically shops I'd grown up, my parents had used, and I just thought their food was like, it was familiar and it felt more safe, which I know is a bit silly because logically their food is just likely to be contaminated, but in my mind it was familiar, so I literally only stuck to those two shops for like ages. But I'm going to now. I think this video is going to shut down on me in a minute, so I'm just going to be quick. But I want to say that my interest in food, what I was talking about at the beginning of this video, has actually helped me to overcome this phobia, which is where autism has actually has been positive in helping me to overcome an OCD. Because I'm so extremely interested in food, and particularly these days nutrition, I really want to eat a balanced diet, and I really want to be able to enjoy food, and that's provided me with the motivation and like willpower to overcome these OCDs and to rationalise them with support. I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own. It's all thanks to the amazing support I now get, which has been so influential. If I hadn't been diagnosed, you know, and I wasn't getting the correct support, I don't think I could have done this on my own, no matter how motivated I was, because I would still be experiencing extreme anxiety, and because the rest of my anxiety is at a lower point, because I feel more secure now, getting the right support and knowing who I am finally as a person with the autism diagnosis, that's like helped me kind of like work on my OCDs as well. But yeah, certainly being interested in it is really helpful. And actually food is now one of the few areas where I actually now enjoy variety, as long as it's within control. Because generally speaking, I like, I need routine and I need things to be a structured, set way. But because food is one of my special interests, I have this like collecting impulse. So I need to kind of like autistics do often like collecting things, but for me it happens to be food. So I need to collect as many different recipes and different like try as many different foods as possible, because food happens to be one of my special interests. So in that narrow area of food, I am willing to be quite adventurous as long as I'm in control. I have to be in control. Someone else can't say, oh, let's go and do this. No, I'm in control. I control my meals. And because I'm now more independent, I get to do that. Whereas in the past, I had to eat what my parents were eating, which sometimes led to conflict. So yeah, I actually rarely go more than 2 days eating exactly the same thing, because I do like trying out different things with food, which you might not, that's, yeah, within a generally quite a controlled existence, that's, yeah, quite a good thing, I think. So, yeah, and the more recent thing, obviously, that I've been doing is overcoming my fish phobia, as I said, because for a while, because, obviously anything like, say, raw meat, raw fish, it has to be cooked, and, like, you have to be careful with hygiene and stuff, but I took it too far. And it meant I just took it completely out of perspective, and just stopped eating it, basically. And like I've rationalised it. I know the risks, like, really, really low. I've been doing this with support, and I know what it looks like when it's cooked. And I've been like practicing it, and reinforcement, and I've actually started to cook it on my own as well. Who would have thought? Because even just a year ago, I was having massive meltdowns, even if I saw fish in the fridge at my dad's, because I thought it was contaminated. So that shows, like, in a whole year, I've gone from that to now being able to cook fish on my own, and I don't have meltdowns anymore, like, around fish being in the fridge and stuff, because, like, just in that space of a year, I've had this massive turnaround, and it is mainly thanks down to the amazing support I get from Alongside Autism. I can't overemphasise that enough. They've been absolutely amazing. And also putting that support into practice as well, through practical support worker input. That combined kind of support, talking it through with someone, on a regular, consistent basis, which has helped me far more than any CBT. That regular, consistent support for someone who knows what they're talking about, who's like trained in autism, has been absolutely fantastic. But also having that reinforced then with practical input from my support worker from Autism Sussex. Both those aspects, both those types of support have been crucial in helping me to overcome this fish. But it's only really since I started receiving support from Alongside Autism that this has happened, so I can't thank them enough. They've been absolutely amazing. And I'm really privileged to live in an area where I can get that support, because not everyone is so lucky. But as I say, my special interest in fish is the third strand. If I wasn't so interested in food and fish and eating that, because I want the omega foods and everything and all the health benefits, then this wouldn't have happened either. So motivation, I am really motivated, and that's where autism, the interest in autism is like a silver lining, or the good side of a double-edged sword of autism. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and I'm going to finish now, and then I'm going to start moving on to part 2, where I'm going to talk a little bit more about generally a little bit of philosophy about interest in the next video. Okay, so thank you for watching.